If there is a message for us today, I believe it is to learn to live from our heart in love. These short lessons, hopefully, will help to inspire you to live with purpose, love passionately, and inspire others. We are the change agent our world needs. I'm Helen Toews. Step into the river today with me to explore the mysteries of God. They are not hidden from us, but for us to discover. Anyway, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It is New Year's 2025. Ed and I were in filling out some forms, and not only didn't we remember what day it was, we had to be prompted to change the year. So I just want you to know we've been doing a lot of practicing living outside of time, and it's I don't know how is everybody? Did you have a good? I feel like it's been forever since we've been together, but missed you like crazy. Had a beautiful time in lots of ways because I had a lot of silence, a lot of quiet, and I one of the things that I did all the time, was to bring you guys up into my heart and practice, just practice. I keep hoping someone phone and say, were you in the kitchen last night? You making tea? Were you the one that's noisy there? But anyway, I'm going to keep practicing that because I know it's our portion. There we go. Tonight, I'm just going to go right in. I have a message tonight, and I'm going to pin myself for the message, and then I'm going to come back into the gallery again so that we can talk. There have been so many calls over the last month of challenges, of different challenges that we're in. And I really I've been sitting with the Lord on it. I'm going to share one of the things that happened to me as well, and it's now a couple of months ago, but it fits exactly in what I really want to share tonight. And tonight, I want to just present this message. You may think, oh, this is an old message, and I know all about it. And you might know the phrase, the dark night of the soul. It might be really familiar to you, and you may have experienced it, but you may at this moment be experiencing it as well. And I know we have so many people that aren't able to come on Wednesday night, but by the weekend, there's literally hundreds that have shared in our meeting together. So I'm not assuming that anybody has experienced this all. I just want to present it as for us to think, and to say to all of us, if any of what I'm sharing tonight in this it touches you, I hope that it will touch you where you're at, but most of all, encourage. It's sort of it sounds like a really down kind of a message. Dark night of the soul sounds really kind of eerie and like, do I really need to know about this? But it's a profound spiritual and emotional experience. And it's often described. The first person I learned was probably 30 years ago with John Paul Jackson, as actually he was going through one, and he described some of the things. And I thought, well, gee, that doesn't sound like fun. But when you get really spiritual, it's just what happens. But I'm realizing that it is indeed some part of our training is what is called the dark night of the soul. And uh, in the last little while, the two authors actually that I've enjoyed sort of reading about this was one. It's the mystical writings of Saint John of the Cross, and it's going to it's more of a religious order kind of thing that he talks about. He was a mystic. And the other one is Greg Braden's Awakening to Zero Point. And Greg explains that this phenomena, excuse me, has a critical phase in personal and collective awakening, and it's also tied to humanity's evolving consciousness. The dark night of the soul, according to St. John of the Cross, is a mystical and deeply spiritual experience that serves as a pathway to divine union with God. So we've got these two. We've got science and we have spirituality, and we're going to see the bridge. We're going to see how the two come together. St. John was a 16th century Spanish mystic, the Carmelite friar, and he first articulated his concept in his writing, and in particular, it's called The Dark Night and the Ascent of Mount Carmel. And his teachings present the dark night as a transformation process in which the soul, he says, is purified. And these kind of terminology, like purifying the soul, might sound really religious, but I think they'll speak to us in that spiritual way, because what we want to do is understand in our being that we are a triune being, right? We are spirit. I call it our sacred self. We're spirit, soul, and body. How so many times we say we're body, soul, and spirit, but uh, in scripture, it says spirit first. We are spirit, we're soul, and we're body. And generally, when it's in that order, it's also an order of importance, which I find interesting. And I personally see our soul as sort of the conduit. The soul connects and communicates between our spirit and our body. And the soul communicates our thoughts, will, and emotions. According to St. John of the Cross, the dark night is not a single event, but a profound spiritual journey of purification, he says, and detachment. It may involve a period of spiritual desolation, suffering, confusion, and during which the soul feels abandoned by God. And in this time, the person may experience a loss of familiar spiritual comforts. So, doesn't that just sound like you can hardly wait to experience it? But just stay tuned. If you are in a transitional stage, as you are exploring your spiritual life from what may have been comfortable and familiar for many years, this might be part of your journey. This stage or experience, despite its seemingly painful nature, is ultimately a process of love and grace and preparing our soul for a deeper understanding and ultimate union with God. There seems to be two stages that have unique elements. One is called the night of the senses. And this is the initial stage where the soul detaches from its reliance on sensory pleasures and consolations in prayer. We're so used to, okay, I'm going to just speak for myself. For many, many years in my religious upbringing, in my season in the church, there was a great reliance on the sensory pleasures of candles being lit and choirs singing, prayers, the all the things that went it. So when you rely on that for your connectiveness to God and your spirituality, when our soul, our mind, will, and emotions detach from that reliance, it doesn't feel good. And especially in the initial stages of it, it's all this familiar seems to go away. And all these practices that once brought us joy, now they may feel dry or empty. And this withdrawal helps the soul actually to go beyond dependence on external experiences. And it may be described as a time of testing, where it seems like God is withdrawing, but he never does. He never leaves us or forsakes us. He never does. But it's a time where our soul learns humility and reliance on God and reliance on faith. The night of the soul is the other, and it's a more profound and challenging phase. It's hard on the soul because it involves detachment from spiritual pride, from ego, and even intellectual understanding. I'm going to say that again. It's a detachment from spiritual pride, and we've talked a lot about ego. Ego doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us to compare with other things and other people for our value. So when we attach, it doesn't detach, sorry, it doesn't feel good. And even an intellectual understanding of God, when we detach from all that, it might feel like a total abandonment. And it might feel like your soul's in a darkness or confusion. The dark night is essential for spiritual growth and union with God. Just um, I think that's sort of a really important statement. It's just like without light or without darkness, rather, you'll never understand the exciting experience of light, would you? Without the anger, how would you understand total peace? All those paradigms, and they come into play. So it's not good or bad. It's just uh, things that give us a um, give a is part of our compass in our direction. And St. John in his writings describes it as a journey of purgation, where the soul is stripped of everything that obstructs divine love. It's described as what helps the soul transcend the ego, to purify desires, because we have desires for lots of things, but to purify them and line them up with Christ consciousness is what this does. And it, excuse me, in modern spiritual contexts, this concept has been broadened to encompass psychological and emotional dimensions of transformation. Some common characteristics that we sometimes experience in this time is what we call spiritual dryness. Here's where prayer and worship may feel unfruitful or devoid of joy that you once experienced. You may feel a sense of abandonment. Our soul sometimes will feel as though God is sort of left. He's in the other room. Or we say the ceiling feels like brass. And it's a state of almost feeling lonely. And it can feel like despair when you feel like you're left. Suffering. The pain experienced is not from a sense of punishment, but it has elements of actually cleansing soul ties, as they are sometimes referred to. In this period of dark night of the soul, you might find yourself detaching from people, from things, other characteristics that might be part of the experience. Though your soul feels abandoned, God is actually working more intimately within you, drawing you closer in divine union. It's it's actually a hidden work of grace in the middle of all of this. St. John emphasized that during the dark night, the virtues of faith, hope, and love are essential for navigating the darkness. And I just wanted to throw this one into this message, because faith provides light in the absence of understanding, guiding the soul through unknown things. Faith is critical. Faith is absolutely critical. Hope. Thank you. Oh, Eddie just brought me some water. Thank you. Hope sustains our soul with trust that darkness is temporary and it's also purposeful. And love, faith, hope, and love. As love is especially engaging. We need to be so aware that we are able to engage unconditional no judgment love. And this deepens our soul as we yield to God selflessly and without relying on emotional consolation or rewards. These are kind of good things to keep in mind. And I bring them up because it's important to remember if we are that person that forgets, or if there's somebody else that we can help, let's remember and bring help to bring them back to faith, hope, and love. Because in divine union, the soul experiences divine love, divine wisdom, and peace, and it becomes free of ego, which is aligned with God's will. And this union is like a marriage. It's like where the soul and God are perfectly united, no longer separated by sin or selfishness, limiting understanding, or especially the ego. To come out of our ego into divine union, we come into a place of rest. If you're in a place of turmoil or feel the dark, check out with your ego or check your ego out. Remember, for those who took the What If Chronicles, I did a what if on ego, and I'm trying to think of his name, the writer anyway, he'll come to me where he said ego is edging God out. Wayne Dyer, that's it. I love that. Our ego is what edges God out. We come into the freedom of divine unconditional love when we are not trapped by our ego. We're guided only by faith and our longing for God, and we come into perfect rest, into that peace, into that shalom. Nothing broken, nothing missing. So, the dark night of the soul is a period of intense inner struggle and is characterized by feelings of isolation. Its purpose is that it's a catalyst for growth, pushing us to shed outdated ways of being and stepping into higher awareness. To come through this time is a process of letting go, releasing attachments to old paradigms. That can be so hard. It can be so difficult. The things that have brought you comfort, the things that we truly rely on, some things have to be let go of. It can involve relationships, jobs, belief systems that no longer align with how you're evolving, things that don't serve you any longer. Letting go often feels like a loss and even despair, but it's essential for new possibilities to emerge. And they are different for all of us. All of us have different things that we had been attached to, or excuse me, I'm just going to take a little drink. Now, excuse me. The dark night of the soul is not just a singular personal experience, but sometimes it's one that humanity collectively undergoes during pivotal times of change. As old systems and structures collapse, a space is created for new, like for more harmonious ways of being. We are in time of shifting. Is there anything in our lives that isn't shifting, or certainly being shaken? Economically, politically, socially, environmentally, in communications, even in travel, family values, entertainment, sexuality. I could go on. It's a crazy list. And it's not always easy to change from old to new ways of thinking or patterns of living. For many who have left religious patterns of years and have changed into that new thought, just that new thought of things, know the difficulty and the pain of loss. Reconnecting our heart, especially our intuition, can guide us through this time. Our heart and our intuition actually bring in new light in this time. The heart's electromagnetic field acts as a bridge between our individual experiences and the greater cosmic field. Do you know that? Our heart, our heart is bridged to the greatest beyond, into the cosmos. We are also learning that science and spirituality are not conflicting, but actually a support to each other that often builds a bridge from one to the other for greater understanding. Our soul's experience might you might feel like you're stuck or lost. You might have a sense of separation from your known spirituality, all the things familiar. You may even feel a separation from from God, and old fears or traumas may resurf, but there's resurfing for resolution. A personal longing for deeper and meaning and purpose is often part two of the experience. We have this in the middle of it all, a longing, a desire for deeper, deeper meaning. Well, how do we navigate this time? If any of this kind of is applying to you, or just remember it if it ever does. There are important things to know that we can navigate through it. First would be surrender. Accept the discomfort as a natural part of growth rather than resisting it. Trust that this is a phase, and it has a higher purpose, even if it isn't immediately clear. Personally, my journey into silence has been the master key for me. And it's not easy to learn to surrender, but oh my golly, it is so, so valuable. Self-compassion. Be gentle with yourself during this vulnerable time. Love yourself first. Give yourself unconditional love without judgment. Isn't that amazing to think about? I give you permission to love yourself unconditionally before anything else. And it's fine. I know we're supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves. It's good. But golly, we need to love ourselves. So we have that to give away liberally. And you know some of the skills that you can use to that is journaling, meditation, either in support from others. All these things are good. Another thing we can do is connect to nature and energy. Science, as well as ancient beliefs, understand the power of grounding yourself through nature. And I loved when Crystal was overwhelmed, and she was sharing in our chatting time. Greg and Crystal are building this brand new home from the ground up. In the winter, it's 40 below here, and going through all sorts of challenges. And through one of them, that's exactly what Crystal did. She went out and grounded herself talking to the trees, and they talked back, and she listened, and it changed. I know it sounds weird, but I'll tell you what, that's the power of grounding through nature, because nature does speak. And nature often mirrors the balance and the renewal process that we undergo. Have faith in the process. If you ever find yourself, or if you are in this place now of the dark night of the soul, have faith. I will never leave you or forsake you, God says. This phase is temporary. The dark night always precedes the dawn and clarity and purpose. Another great scripture is weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The dark night of the soul is not an end, it's a beginning. It's a gateway to a higher awareness, deeper alignment with your authentic self. I call it your sacred self. It is challenging, yet transformation. It is a challenging but a transformative phase, and it's part of the greater cycle of human and planetary evolution. Do you know that? We're not going to go into those cycles, but now that it's been mentioned, I guarantee you it'll come up on in other things. Embracing the experience with courage and faith can lead to profound healing and illumination. The dark night of the soul is one of the most profound and transformative phases of spiritual awakening. It's often described as a descent into depths of the self where the familiar dissolves and where you're confronted with the essence of who you truly are. This experience is both an individual and a collective rite of passage. It's essential for evolving consciousness and for aligning to the greater cosmic order. So when you're going through it, it sounds like it's really personal, and the whole thing is your world and it's very small. But actually, it is this experience is both for the individual, but it has a collective rite of passage. And it is what brings us into kingdom life. And it doesn't resemble any of our three, four-dimensional understanding. Understanding the night of the soul, the dark night of the soul, the darkness symbolizes uncertainty and fear and the dismantling of old paradigms. And it's where the ego loses its grip. And when it does, it creates space for higher or sacred self to emerge. Greg Braden, in his book, Awakening to Zero Point, connects the dark night of the soul to the humanity's collective shift towards a higher vibrational state tied to the energetic changes in the planet and cosmos. He sees it as a necessary breakdown of outdated systems, both internal beliefs and fears and external societal structures, to make way for the new. Humanity's collective shifts toward a higher vibrational state tied to the energetic changes in the planet and the cosmos. Have I just taken us out and put us into a whole bigger box? It's not just about the onesie twosies of us experiencing. It is actually something that we go through, not just individually, but collectively as the whole planet is part of. I believe we're in that time. The dark night is called to transformation, and it begins with a catalyst such as loss, trauma, illness, spiritual awakening. You may feel as though life has lost its meaning and propelling you into wow, introspection. Sometimes those words just have too many syllables. It propels you to be thinking about things and dealing with some things that maybe felt that you weren't ready to. In the heart of the dark night, it can be a period that is marked by confusion or despair, emotional pain. At this time, old identities and attachments dissolve, leaving you feeling lost and untethered. Realizing that resistance prolongs the pain, this is the time when you recognize what is happening and you begin to let go and trust the process. Surrender allows for deeper insight and emergence of higher perspective. And as I had meditated on that, why would I just let go? Just let go and let God. Why just surrender? Because I like to know the hows. I like to analyze. But I'm realizing more and more in my life, and the closer the relationship with God is, the easier it is to surrender because I'm not just surrendering from something, I'm surrendering to something that is bigger, to God, surrendering to um, not just a process, but a being that created me in the first place. It's a safe place to surrender to. And as clarity returns, You begin to rebuild with a renewed sense of purpose. See, in those arms, in the arms of God, you can be safe and you know he's part of building, he's part of creation. In that will emerge transformed, embodying greater wisdom, compassion, and connection to the divine. In the studies in the heart in the Institute of Heart Math, and you know I'm going to bring this up because it's so much part of my life. These studies show that the human heart and brain coherence is a powerful electromagnetic field that interacts with the Earth's energy field. And as this connection deepens, it will also recalibrate you to a new vibrational frequency. The breakdown of the old patterns paves way for alignment, and it's called the 0 point energy. 0 point energy is simply the lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical system can live. In Greg's book, Awakening to the 0 point, the term takes on a symbolic meaning in spirituality and consciousness. 0 point can be experienced as a moment of deep alignment, peace, connection with the universal energy field, and it's seen as a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. 0 point is a phase of humanity collectively approaches during times of major energetic shifts, such as those that are influenced by the Earth changing magnetic field. Do you know that that these are changing now? These shifts challenge old paradigms. They invite humanity to create new systems in alliance with higher consciousness. All of the shifting, whether we talk about our shifting within the dark night of the soul within ourselves, or with the shifts in the magnetic fields of the earth, is all about inviting humanity to create these new systems, and they will align with higher consciousness. How many times in the last, well, certainly last few years, have we continually been saying, we feel like we're in a shift. We feel like we're in a change. And you know why? It's because we are. We totally are. The dark night of the soul is not just a personal, but it mirrors the collective shifts in humanity. If you're going through any of this now, and if it's been triggered by trauma or illness or some suddenly in your life, it actually is mirroring the collective shifts humanity is undergoing, because we are going through incredible times of change as we face environmental and political and social upheavals. These collective dark nights, right, prepare humanity, prepare us individually, prepares societies for new eras of higher consciousness. That's why it's not a bad thing. It's got a dark title of Dark Night of the Soul, but the result of it is a sacred blessing. The dark night is a phase within our life cycle, and it represents death of the old, but it also represents the birth of the new. There's some common experiences. There's emotional turmoils, like feelings of despair, grief, hopelessness, and they're common as old wounds and fears may be suffering or surfacing at this time, creating a suffering. It may feel like spiritual emptiness or disconnection with God, even. In this time, some people are questioning identity and purpose. Long held beliefs and self identities are challenged, leaving you unsure of who you are or what your purpose is. Some people are feeling isolated and feeling separated from others and unable to relate to the world as you once did. Well, so many of our paradigms in life is shifting with our understanding, with our actually it's shifting because we're coming in to a closer and closer understanding who God is and how he operates in us and through us in our kingdom reality, in our resurrection realities. Sometimes there's physical symptoms attached to it. Energetic shifts during this time can manifest as fatigue, restlessness, or other physical symptoms, and they are reflecting the body's adjustment to new frequencies. I'm going to share what happened to me a couple of months ago. I was standing in the kitchen and reaching into the pantry to do some dinner prep, and I blacked out. I total things totally went black and ended up on the floor. Very grateful that Ed was there, and he made the decision to take me into the hospital. I did not argue. It was the most unusual. Um, I've never experienced that before. In the hospital, because of my age, they want to now check for, did she have a stroke? She having a heart attack? So uh, they go to the big tests. They do your heart, your EKGs. They do test for your blood sugar, make sure you're not diabetic, your blood pressure, of course. It goes on and on. They even did brain scans. They did neurological workups, and they also did the carotid artery imaging, where they put dyes in you to see if there's any blockages or anything. After all of that, hours and hours of test after test, doctor came in and said, "We can't find anything wrong. We don't, we don't know." And I said, "So I have this symptom, but I have nothing wrong." He said, "That's pretty much it." I went home. I still was extremely dizzy, but I was very grateful that I had gone in and been checked out. A friend, same day, get a note actually from a friend who said, "Have you ever listened to this person?" It was her name's Dolores Cannon. I had no clue who she was, and what her it was just a little 5 minute blurb, and what she was talking about was exactly what I've just been sharing about the when there are energetic shifts in the earth, people that are tuning in to the frequencies, to the higher frequencies, and living out of your sacred self, actually experience the disequilibrium of what's going on. And as difficult as the symptoms were, it was very peaceful thinking, okay, this is not something that is serious. I didn't know where to put serious because none of the tests, and they were extensive, had me uh, uh, could tell me that there was something wrong. So I dealt with it spiritually, and and I would since that happened, I have had five different friends that are in the same path that we are. I don't know how to describe it. In the same shifting into Christ consciousness as we are and studying, but five in 1 month with the same kind of symptoms. And I'm realizing I needed to share that, and I needed to put it in this context because I don't think it's unusual. I don't think that this is unusual. It's a to be dizzy and off center, like people that have vertigo, where the room's spinning and everything's going around, is a very, very difficult thing to manage. But we can navigate this understanding, first of all, that we can surrender to God in it. And so if you're experiencing any of this, if you're experiencing anything of that I just explained to you, um, I actually took it as a good thing. I'm just in line with what's going on. I'm going to keep going, and I haven't had those symptoms again. But one of the things that I did during this time was to embrace stillness and use the time for introspection and meditation. It's a time to get more quiet. It's not a time to be in fear or angst of any kind. Quiet your mind and listen to the wisdom of your heart. And let go of resistance. Resisting a process only amplifies the struggle. Do you know that? So when we surrender to the unknown, which people would say you don't know, but I don't not resist. I don't surrender to something I don't know. I surrender to who I do know and to whose I am. Because I know my God, I know where I came from, I know where I'm going, and I can trust that with all my heart. And trusting it is what leads to clarity. I believe we should seek support. And while this journey is really deeply personal, seeking guidance from other people, from spiritual texts like or meditation, prayer, even our communities can provide comfort. I think that's one of the blessings that we have of having the river group and having people that we can talk to and be transparent. We're each other's support. And that reconnecting with nature, that grounding, that is super, super important. Can't say I love being out in 40 below and I'm not spending much time out there at all, but reconnecting with nature is really, really important. And cultivating faith, right? To understand where you are. If you're going through a shift, a transition from one religion or ideology, or uh, know what it is for you. Come to bring your language to your heart and your experience, because this is all part of God in us, right? Our oneness, our I amness. And everyone has to come to that place individually so that when we come collectively, we're strong and stronger and stronger. And I came to the place too that I realized as I was going through this particular episode, I realized that I am the observer of my body. In my sacred self, I knew myself in God greater than anything that was happening. When I came to the peace of that, that's that's where I had the most peace and was totally asymptomatic. Lessons gained, are going to from this time of the dark night of the soul. Number one, spiritual growth. This experience deepens your connection to the divine. It strengthens your faith in the unseen. You release illusions and you emerge with a clearer understanding of truth and free from limiting beliefs and attachments. Going through a dark night of the soul time brings you into the light. It brings you into enlightenment. There's a new purpose and perspective when you go through it. The dark night often leads to a renewed sense of purpose, and it guides you into so that you can live in alignment with your soul's mission. For it brings you into alignment with your own purpose, and you will live purposefully in it as well. It leads you to empathy and compassion. When we face our own shadows, we develop a greater capacity for empathy towards others on their journeys. It leads us into that unconditional love and not judging, not just ourselves, but other people. The dark night of the soul is a profound journey of transformation and is both personal and collective in its awakening. And although it might feel like an end, it's truly a beginning. It's a sacred process that strips away the false to reveal the authentic. And by embracing this period with courage and trust, we align ourselves with the universal flow of creation, with God Himself, and we step into the light, into the into the whole resurrection reality of our I amness and into the light of our true essence. So I'm going to leave that tonight. So let's just take a few minutes right now as we gather back into the room. Let's just take these a few minutes personally of just silence. If you have a journal wherever you're sitting, or you may want to just write what you're feeling or questioning, but let's just enjoy that silence for a few minutes and then we'll come back into the room together. Okay, I know that's not a long time, but I'm hoping that I didn't discourage anybody. From Amanda to everyone, perfect morning. Thank you. Um, I hope I didn't discourage anybody in this. When I came back into the Hollywood Squares here, the first thing I saw was our Jen, and she was so affirming. I thought, thank you, Jen. Thank you. She has she has that influence of just tuning in. So sweet. Does anybody want to comment or Gina?
Thank you. Um, I don't feel quite so alone. Um, because you do in this time. And I think that for me, um, it's been a long while. Um, and when we're searching for truth and we're finding nuggets of it, it blows your whole everything you thought you knew to smithereens. And that's difficult. Um,
Yeah.
and for me, I'm not a, oh, I'll take a little bit at a time. I'm extreme. So
Yeah.
these things happen in extremity both
Yeah.
ways for me. Um, and that can be daunting and unnerving. And, but we are never in a place of any kind of feeling unless we're ready to be there. And it doesn't just come upon you and you're not ready.
Yeah.
Don't just say, oh, I'm going to go into the dark night of the soul now, because it's a thing we just learned about, whatever.
Right.
Um, it's a thing that you either get thrust into or you get gently prodded and carried into or walked into by Father, um, and by your relationship with Him and by our desire
Mhm.
inside of us. Um, and, you can consent or not, like anything else. You can have life and death set before you, and you can choose whatever you want. Um, and yeah, and sometimes it feels very unnerving because it is like we've talked about before, and
Mhm.
I put in a lot of my own little sharings and musings that I've shared with you here. It's it's not the most comfortable thing because it challenges your very being.
Mhm.
But oh
Mhm.
my goodness, what the heck else do we want to be doing?
Yeah.
What is going to church or searching for truth or having a relationship with Almighty God of Creator of the universe hollow? What else would it feel like? Right? And who are we to think that we know stuff
Mhm.
and everything and whatever?
Mhm.
Well, we got the bead on this and we got the, you know, I'm up on that and doodly doo. Wow. We are just who we are and we are one with Father. That's the most beautiful thing. So I think, well, okay. And one with the universe and one with each other and one with nature. And that is the most beautiful thing because we are a part of,
Mhm. Mhm.
we share our being with and in. And so, and we never get to know it all, ever.
That's right.
So, so wow. So I've dealt with that part and I thought, okay, great. I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay, you. Oh, great. I don't have to write the essay or the test on this.
That's right. Exactly. I think what you said right at the beginning is such a new thought for me, and I'm going to incorporate it. I loved what you said. It doesn't just happen. I think that is another uh, curtain open on this, and it's kind of a cool one because if it doesn't just happen, then there's a creating force behind it that is propelling or inviting or something. I don't know. Because the dark night sometimes is comes by trauma or by disease or by things that happen.
Right.
But I think there might be just that element as well of it being almost a guided, you're ready. So it's a thing to celebrate. You're
Absolutely.
ready for these challenges that seem like maybe they're so dark, but they're for our good and for our growing and for our perfecting and all that. I
And it's
love
not like
that.
dark, like scary. And it's
No,
not like dark, like,
no,
uh,
but it can
oh,
be
I'm
just
never going to come out.
it can be dark, like helpless. You
Yes. And
when
hopeless. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
hope, yeah,
And I'll give you a little image. I thought, okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't what I believe anymore. I don't believe anything. You get to this point. And I thought, okay, I am just going to take this rope and tie a darn knot in it, and I'll be able to hang on a little better because it's not quite so slippery.
yeah,
That's all I had.
yeah. There we go. There's some really good thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I appreciate you very much. Susan.
Helen, thank you. And Gina, thank you. And you also said something at the beginning of your of speaking into what Helen did, Gina. And it's the first time I went through the dark night of the soul, I thought that I would never come out. And I was studying that I was in the Catholic tradition for a while there, quite a while, and I studied St. John, and I always felt like I sort of can get this, but I think if he had my vocabulary or our vocabulary, he would say it in a way that is deeper and more understandable for us. And what I just got tonight from that is when he talked about purifying the soul with the darkness. I'm really wondering if he wasn't in the quantum field in that darkness and space, but he didn't have the words to say. And that purity of the soul is when we get to pure consciousness.
Yeah.
And I was so that, and just because of where I am in my journey right now, to even re-examine that season of the dark night was that just opened a whole new revelation for me. And then to see the connection, I think he was probably saying some things very similar to what Greg Braden is saying, but he didn't have the expression of the science and the vocabulary to say it. And I had not thought of that. I try, I try to keep people, when I read about historical things, I try to keep them in their historical context because you can make them very contemporary, but it's foolishness to do that. You want to be able to know that the whole picture for them. So
Right.
I'm just wowed tonight. Thank you so much for just opening some areas that have made me be able to connect prior things that I've been through to things that I'm in right now and have the whole thing be just multiplied extravagantly into a much fuller experience. Thank you.
I appreciate you saying that, Susan. Putting this message together made me feel the same way because I come back from a religious background as well, and having had experienced it, um, didn't understand the bridging of that these two authors of Greg and St. John of the Cross, they're diametrically not opposed to one another. They're actually confirming one
Mm-hmm.
another. They've become the bridge that they both talk about, and it's very unique. It almost feels like there's joy in the journey of the dark
Mm-hmm.
night when you put it all together, right?
Well, I think there is a measure of tremendous, it's not exactly, certainly you couldn't call it joyful when you're in it, but when you are completing that season, and it does come and go. I mean, it's not a once and done deal. And I have found each time the deeper I surrender and allow myself to go into that darkness, the more is, I don't want to say accomplished, but the more is changed for the better.
Right,
And I come out so different.
right.
And again, I think it has to do with the season now of embracing that deeper kind of meditation and that deeper dimension of going into the void and going into what I would say I was too fearful to let go of and go into now. I'm, can't wait to get there. I'm embracing it. And I think that, again, when I look at now the Desert Fathers, I look at a different light. They weren't complaining about the dark night of the soul. They were trying to tell us what a dimensional expanse it was and what value there was in it. But I'm laughing because I can just see St. John looking around and going, I tried to tell him. And then when I say something where I told you so, you just didn't decode it. And I think, oh Lord, this is just like Papa, to say he gave us what we could stand without blowing our heads off. And
Right.
that's just so good. That's just so good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. It is true. And in the middle of all of the darkness or that darknesses that we do experience, we're just talking to somebody today about that, and one of the gifts that we have is each other to
Oh yeah.
to share the journey, right?
Hmm.
And like Gina said when she started talking, I don't feel so alone. And yay for that, to come to that place where I don't believe we should share with the world. But I think that the journey that we're on is a lot more how I was going to say joyful because it just seems to be my word right now. Um, but it's so much easier, so much easier
Hmm.
being able to share, just
Yeah.
being able to, right? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Susan.
Thank you, Helen.
Awesome. Plank family. Nice to see you. Missed you for Christmas.
Hi, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, everyone. Um, I'm very tender right now, and I'm not, I'm pretty tired first week back at getting up at the crack of dark 30 to get into the gym. So it could be that, but I think there's just so much change going on, and there's changes coming for us that we're starting to sense and feel, and there's a sweetness in all of it. Work has been pretty tough for many, many, many people, but um, there's been a sweetness in it, and it's the relationships that I have. In fact, I just sat down with somebody today, and I set a meeting with them, and it's a peer of mine who I can share just about anything with, and different perspectives, different coming at it from different angles, but um, we just had a really good talk, and it was um, there were some difficult things to discuss, but it was easy because we both have each other's backs, right? And it's not just, a corporate kind of thing. It is literally we care. Um, when she um, was pregnant with twins and went for just a regular checkup and ended up having to drive herself, which she probably shouldn't have done, right to the hospital to be bedridden for the next 2 months so the babies wouldn't come too early. She called me before she called her husband, and it was not in any kind of inappropriate way, but she knew I was a man of faith and prayer and that she could start that. Plus, I was her boss at the time, so she was trying to tell me why she wasn't coming back to work. But she laughed later. She said, "I can't believe I called you before I called my husband." And he wasn't fazed by it. Elizabeth wasn't fazed by it. It's because we support each other that way. And it's just grown over the last 9 years that we've worked together. But um, the tenderness comes partially from the conversation that we had today. But, you know, um, I have never embraced sadness. I've never embraced the darkness. I've tried to avoid it, hide it, bury it. But I'm getting better. Okay, I'm getting better because I really do. One of my favorite verses is James 2, count it all joy. And that resonated with me before I actually understood it. And I think going into the dark night of the soul, even somebody was just talking about Job in a sermon this weekend, and I don't enjoy reading Job because I'm like, oh, that's awful. Oh, that's awful. That's awful. But you have to read it with a different lens, right? And you have to read it with more maturity, frankly, spiritual maturity. And you all have helped me do that. But without going on and on, during the break, I had a lot of time to read, and I do Audible, but I came across a book that was just highly rated. I mean, 5 stars on Audible. And so it said, based on your purchases, we recommend this one. And I didn't even know what genre it was. I bought it. It was a 35-hour, it was a collection of several books. But I got to tell you, I think I went through it in a week or two. I mean, I just ate it up while I was running, while I was shaving, while I was showering, whatever I was doing. And I'll tell you the name of it. It's called The Last Hunter, and it's fiction. And I don't know if you'd call it sci-fi. It's probably more sci-fi than fantasy. Not my normal, like, oh, let me go see what's going on in fantasy genre. But I was hooked. And I don't want to ruin it, but the main character, he literally is so connected to the continent of Antarctica, and his parents are archaeologists and geologists, that kind of thing. So he was born there, but he's so connected to the continent that he actually, and this is what you reminded me of, how it all ties together. He actually is so connected that the elements actually behave and follow his emotions. And he doesn't understand it because he's just a kid when it starts. But he goes through a tremendous amount, but most of it is literally in pitch darkness and survival. In a deep cave crevice in Antarctica, zero light. But what he becomes through it is his true identity. So,
Oh.
and I shared a lot of it with Elizabeth, but I finished the last like 2 books so fast. She goes, okay, so what happened? And I couldn't even tell her, there was just too much. But if you're looking for something that's enjoyable, it is sci-fi. So there's some things that are hard to read. It's not adult, but it's a little bit gross. I guess imagine surviving with no weapons or anything and how you have to eat. So it's a little gross. So I'll just give that kind of parental warning. But it is amazing how it ties in with everything that we've done. And it truly is. He is actually so tied to that part of creation that it follows his commands, but he doesn't do them willy-nilly. He becomes more powerful when he becomes less violent, and he becomes more powerful when he becomes more forgiving and more gracious. And so I ended up basically reading the gospel again in this book, but in a very metaphysical, new age kind of way, with just kind of a cool sci-fi. Oh, that's wild how they tied all that together. But I will tell you, it was preparation for me. It was more about what humans can endure. And of course, this is fiction, but what humans can endure by design, but how connected we really all are. And reading that at first, I was like, this is not my kind of thing, but I just have to see what happens. And then I just kept having this, and then I couldn't wait to see what happened. But coming through a season where it hasn't been easy, my job is never easy, but it has been a lot of fun and it's been very interesting. And I'm going into a new season, into that new temporary assignment that might end up permanent. But there's an ending to what I've been doing for 9 years. Even the very close relationships doesn't mean I won't see them, but we won't be working day to day together. And so there's a little bit of mourning going on. And I don't know if you've done that through work or other relationships. People start to separate before you actually leave. They're mentally getting ready to go on without you. And I'm like, hey, I'm still in this meeting. Talk about me like I'm still here. Treat me like I'm still here. And so there's moments where I'm like, well, I'm already gone to these folks. And it is that book was preparing me. All of this was preparing me. And trust me, it could be so much worse. I didn't lose my job or anything. I'm going to something that I very much want to do. But it is also intimidating because I've got a learning curve. But what ties in with all of this, the dark night of the soul, Elizabeth has learned to really embrace, like when our last pet passed away. I don't even like her to tell me stories about other people's pets passing away because that's how much I just didn't want to go there. My gift of imagination, my sanctified imagination is so vivid that I am feeling the feelings of that person. And I don't call myself that empathetic, but I'm like, boy, I don't want to go through that. Boy, I don't want to go through that. You don't tell me about it because I sort of go through it when you just tell me about it. I'm getting better at it to the point, Helen, where I'm almost telling her to stop at the point when it gets to reincarnation. That was our rule. That was our. I'll listen
I
to
don't
your,
always follow it.
I'll listen to your NDEs until you tell me that this is their third trip. Um, but now I'm even going, okay, so if you don't learn the lesson and it does get harder and you do go into that dark night of the soul, the end is always, always, always so much better.
Absolutely.
And it has been. And I mean, I've got so many testimonies. If I took inventory, I don't know how I could ever want to avoid something other than I don't enjoy pain. I'd rather do physical pain than emotional pain any day. Um, that all the time,
He
actually.
does that. See, it's like he said it.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you, this group, this connection that we have, I only mention that book because one, it is fun, but it was so much deeper than I think the author even knew. It spoke to me. That's how God, he can reach me in a in a silly buddy comedy. And all of a sudden, something that Elizabeth was telling me that she learned from Joel
Goldsmith.
Joel Goldsmith, and I'm like, "Ooh, that was some fancy talking right there. I'll figure that out later." And then I'll be watching some goofy comedy, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what she meant."
Mhm.
But it's a fun book to read. It's a great book to read. But I will tell you, if you read it and you even just think back to this session tonight, um, I can see that connection very, very, very easily. And it changed something in me that I didn't even know it changed until tonight.
Come on. Someone asked what the author's name is of that. Do you know?
I do, because I just looked it up.
Okay.
Jeremy Robinson.
Okay. Robinson. You said so much in your sharing. I appreciate so much, Todd, that you continue to keep us in your home with you in your journey. I love it. I thank you so much for it. Um, there's there's so much that we could jump off conversations as well, and I appreciate that. Uh, I love that that the dark night of the soul, that you have this parallel in something you've just read. It's so I think I'd love everybody to know the value of what you just said. We sometimes get so spiritually minded. We think our information and our influence and our encouragement needs to come from some other some learned way or some faith-based way, and then he puts a novel in your hand, and he does what no one else could because he got it to you, right? That it was to you. It didn't just happen. This
It,
was ordained as in it. And I think that's the lovely part of the sharing. And I, for one, I don't know where I'm going to find 35 hours to engage in it. But if I have it on my Audible library, then someday it'll be perfect and I'll press go. I love that kind of thing. I I love one of the things that in the last few months has really has really been important to me is letting go of all the shoulds, not the have tos. I've let go of those, but the things that I thought I should be doing instead of something else that is more spiritual, more poignant, more um, inspirational, just more. And some of the times where I've just relaxed and found the lost hunter has been the biggest changes. It's been really, really lovely. Absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing a new book for us, even though it's a 35-hour read.
yeah, I will tell you, the only way to do it is don't think about how long it is to go. Just see if
Start.
you can get it. And for me, I was like, gosh, I'm not even sure I'll finish this one. And then I couldn't wait to. Um,
Love
but
that.
but it's that's the other thing I love about him so much is I could try to sit down and read Joel Goldsmith, and I could get a couple of pages and then probably fall asleep, get a couple of pages, and it would feel like a chore. And I would get something out of it. I really would, but it would feel like a chore. But I love that she shares with me, and then God puts it in a way that works for me.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, literally, it's our friend Bill Vanderbush talks about it. He says from the pulpit, he says, give him a chance. Listen to secular radio every once in a while, not just worship, and see what you find out in a song.
That's right.
Somebody was gifted from the creator himself and
Yeah.
wrote a song
Yeah.
that's art to them,
Yeah.
or it's to make money, but it speaks to people in a way that he intended that they don't even necessarily know about.
Yeah.
And that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Sometimes it's in the most unlikely moments, and it actually should maybe be a point in this particular um, message of the importance of just freeing your mind from intensity or problem or illness or whatever. Just read 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 The Last Hunter. Listen to that song. Just uh, you know, do a what do you call it? When you listen, you're watching 10 episodes of something.
Binge.
Yeah, binge
Yeah,
A
something.
yeah,
bit.
you binge on something. It's okay. It's okay. You can, but the interesting thing is what it happens to your mind. It sort of gets freeing and brings that space so that you can be comfortable where you're at. It's really good. I love that. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. and Elizabeth and Jen.
Oh, by the way, while we were all in our moment of silence, she was just loving it. She wasn't silent, she was affirming the entire time.
I know. I turned on the gallery, and she's the first I saw the connectedness of the whole thing. Jen, we love you so much. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you.
You hear that, Boo?
She does. She does. Pat, where are you? Nice to see you.
Okay. Yes, I totally love what you just said about free the intensity, because this last year has been a really tough year. And one of the ways that I free my intensity is by watching Wheel of Fortune. And I just relax. I just watch it. I try to guess what they're doing. And I really look forward to it. And it really helps my heart and my body and mind to just relax. And also reading, a book. I tried reading so many books this year, and I don't know, there was just something missing in almost so many of them. And then I just finished well, almost finished a few pages because I keep falling asleep. But it's a cute little story about a young girl and how she lived next to an Amish family. And it was really sweet, just pure and wholesome and loving, and their stories. And it helped me relax as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
encourage people to give themselves permission that it's not spiritual. It's not, you can listen to a song, you can dance, you can watch Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, but you have to think more from Jeopardy. Anyway, have a blessed New Year, everyone. It's good to see you.
Oh, thanks, Pat. Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're saying, right? Create space so that you're not so intense, so intense. I don't know where that came from, thinking that we had to always be just so intense, I guess, and is just the word. Eddie, Eddie.
Yes, it's hard to even speak when you listen to Todd and the ramifications and stuff. But anyway, I'll um, if I read the English word or the English uh, the dark night of the soul, uh, whether it's a day or a week or a season, I can't see anybody on purpose like being loving to be uncertain or uncomfortable and stuff like this. But then I remember you using the word catalyst, and so a catalyst like like I think you said propels and invites you into that new awakening. And so then I said, oh, like just because you said that, whether myself or anybody may be listening, you gave them hope to that there is to embrace that dark night of the soul, to uh, not to relish in pain, or which no one likes, but to embrace the experience and the spiritual awakening. So I'm saying that to me that was a very um, uh, a word that, like, anyway, it brought me, or brought it could bring people out of this darkness and saying, oh, because no one likes to be in that dark night of the soul. But now you're saying, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that you have hope, you're going to get through it. And uh even though you're struggling and stuff, but there's hope. I guess that's That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying, you know?
yeah. I think it's a very, very good point. And really it's the one we need to remember that when we go through, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And I remember one sermon from my childhood, actually, uh, for you to be walking through the shadow of death, there has to be a light on the other side.
Hmm.
And so, too often we walk in a shadow without recognizing or realizing that it's light that caused the on the other side that created the shadow. And like Gina said, these things don't just happen. They happen for our good, our reason, for a reason. And I'm personally of the belief that God is in the middle of all of it. Absolutely all of it. I don't know. I don't have the why or the hows, but I have the confidence that I'm not alone in it, and it's for my good. It's for my good. So,
Amen.
yeah, thanks, Eddie. Thank you. Plank family.
Me this time. So
Hi.
before Jen and I got on, actually before we ate, we were doing our communion, our quiet time. And I just heard alignment with the head, alignment to the head. And then again, when we did our quiet time in this, that's what I heard. And so it's interesting what you were talking about, the dark night of the soul, and also how it aligns like our individual dark night of the soul and the collective conscious, which, I believe COVID was that. And we all know that we've all been talking about it, what we're stepping into, what has already begun.
Mhm.
It's just so interesting. I liked what Susan was saying too about the void. And it made me think of how I was talking to Todd about this the other night about how, as we go through our life and maybe things from the past that we just shove down, um, they end up new situations come for us to work those things out. There's nothing that we can just forget about and avoid, right? And so a new situation will come for us to, overcome and go through it. But we don't have to physically walk through these things when we learn to step into meditation and stillness and the we can learn, we can get these deep downloads and these revelations and these learnings that way, as opposed to walking it all out. It's just interesting. Um, and also, I was thinking about the void, like the dark night of the soul. And, I love the near-death experiences and how they come into the void, into the blackness, where it's just dark. But I think it's so necessary because I feel Holy Spirit. It's like we have to release attachments. Even in this life, we form unhealthy attachments where it's beyond just holy, the holy attachments. It's selfish or it's just beyond, the beautiful godly purpose. And so, I think it's just such a beautiful thing when we get to do that. And we know, I mean, we don't really know by experience yet, but well, who knows? Sorry. But the void, yeah, the fullness that God's all in that, but it's like that's not the end. The end is the fullness of love, the fullness of everything. But the process is just beautiful. And I think it's so beautiful that we have stepped into and tapped into the revelation of these things, the beginning of our, experiences of these things, and just opening up to it. It's beautiful.
Right. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
We are in a privileged place when you think
Yeah.
about it. A really, really privileged. And when I love you sort of put together, I just liked how you said it. You put together all the things that we've been studying, that we've been talking about, that we've been experiencing, putting them together. And that's how we need to be living out of what we know, not just the theories of what we know, right?
Yeah.
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 So beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Gina, and then I thought I saw somebody else. Debbie, I thought. Okay, Gina.
Thanks. The sharings are so beautiful, and I keep feeling like, through tonight, and once we heard what you said, Helen, and what you shared, what we've all shared, it really feels like a call to me. And it's not like everybody has to answer this call. I'm not saying that, but the beautiful thing about, I think, what we're walking into and what we have shifted into is that we live our lives in a different way than we used to. There's not a have to. And but it's a maturing.
Mm-hmm,
So walking in a way
mm-hmm,
higher than we used to walk. It's
right,
thinking in a way than that we used to think. We
right.
don't have to live but in this box of whatever our belief systems are, or whatever our limiting beliefs are, or whatever we think we should do, or whatever, blah blah, all the parameters. There are no parameters. There is no box.
Mm-hmm.
So we get out of this box in our mind, or you watch a show, or watch Wheel of Fortune or whatever, or read The Lost Hunter, or, not anything all spiritual. It has nothing to do with any of that. We have thought that that was the way,
Right.
but we are the way.
Yeah.
And within us is the truth. And so it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what we see and watch and blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we rise up within ourselves, and it's a call, it's a
Yeah.
maturing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a walking in a way, like Elizabeth was saying, to overcome. It's got purpose because we need to be different than we are in order to live in the different world that will be.
Yeah.
We need to live differently of ourselves in order to live higher in our higher selves.
Mm-hmm.
So something's got to break. And
Yeah.
I think this darkness exposes light,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like we've seen in the last 4 years. All the darkness. What have we learned? We've learned so much that we never would have learned before.
Yeah.
I'm not saying God brought it all, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying we're here in this spot, and we're faced with this challenge, and we have to, what's going to rise?
Yeah.
Going to
Yeah.
rise up in us. And so it causes a conflict.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
There's a
so this,
lot there that it has to displace, right?
yeah,
It's um to get the new wine in, the old wine can't be can't be.
absolutely,
Yeah.
exactly. And it and I think that's the challenge, and I think that's the call.
Mhm.
Let's let's not have any more old wine. I want the good wine.
The good fresh stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you, girl. I'm with
Mhm.
you. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, that's freedom. You talked freedom. That's fabulous. Debbie.
Unmute. Wow, this is so good. I can relate to everything everybody has said. And you know, what's been happening to me, I would say, very consciously happening to me now is I feel my biology changing. I feel my body, my physical body changing. And so I am becoming someone else. I'm becoming, and we are becoming who we really are. And I feel that in my physical body.
Yeah.
And it, feeling that gives me such a great signal when I get into myself or get caught up or whatever and all the junk, because the contrast of it, the way I feel like I used to feel a whole lot, is now is intolerable. And I was, even today I was, every day is a challenge for me. I mean, when I look at the dark night of the soul, when I first started hearing about this, years ago, I would kind of attribute it to people that I would see that would, go into depressions and get lost in the emotional haze and all that kind of stuff. And that really never happened to me, but on an emotional level like that. But I can see where I have been challenged by life almost on a daily basis, and sometimes very, very intensely. And it's almost as if the more we mature, the harder it gets, but the easier it gets too. And there's, and when Susan was talking about that consciousness is freedom, when I experience that, when I'm free of my own self, is what it is. And living from crisis to crisis for me is just my own stuff that creates that. And I now that I understand more that I don't have to live that way, and when I can just become aware of it, be still and become aware of it, I can shift out of that. And and I've gotten to where now, somebody said some time back, if you'll just count from 10 to 0, sit down and count from 10 to 0, you're training your body just to go to that 0 point that we've been talking about. And it's true now when I close my eyes, because I've practiced that of going within. I can get to that baseline 0 point where everything is just at a calm level, and get in touch with it for that moment. And when I do that, that shift occurs. And when that shift occurs, it propels me for a period of time. Sometimes it's not very long and I get tangled up again. But then other times, I catch that flow and I keep going with it and I keep going with it. And the more I keep going with it, the more expansive and freer I feel. And the union of, with Christ and with everyone and with nature and all that becomes clear. And I feel it originate within me, but then I feel it go through my body, and then I feel it go, I release it out. So, all this for me is a shift in a state of beingness that I live in. And we all have a state of beingness that we live in. But as we grow in the Lord, that gets so, it becomes so obvious to you, the stuff that needs to be released. And it's like I don't struggle to release it anymore. I just recognize it and let it go. And I'm like, it's spiritual growth for me is more of letting go of all the stuff that is not who I really am, rather than trying to be
Mhm.
a super spiritual person or whatever.
Mhm.
It's not that, because we already are that he has made us to be. We just have ways of living, being, thinking, patterns, all kinds of things that keep us from being that keep us from being who we really are, because we're chained by those things. And so for me, it's almost always a thinking pattern, and most of the time it's based in fear.
Wow. Yeah.
And I I mean, I want to get to that place, where perfect love casts out fear, where there's just such a union that I don't have that anymore, but I'm not there. And so I'm growing in that. But it's no longer like me setting a goal and then trying to get there. It is just a matter of, it's a matter of letting go. It's a matter of, and I always thought that surrender, I never did like that word, because it felt like you were always just giving up something you really wanted to do. But that's really not what it is. I'm finding out that it's letting go of those things that hold me back. It's letting go unto freedom.
Right.
So it's that shift has occurred there, so that helps tremendously. But I had the last year, for the first 8 months, I really went through a trial and tribulation. And I was, even the people that were involved with it, in this with me, they even said, it's just crazy the amount of things that are happening to me. So, I mean, they saw it too. But at the same time, I knew that it was, like we've been talking about, I knew it was unto my freedom. It was unto growth. It was unto greater things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I made it up, because other people were saying, this is really crazy, off the charts stuff that's happening here,
Yeah.
And but so I kind of needed that, I think. I hate to say the word need. That's not really. I think it was part of my preparation to go through that, because that was kind of a slammer. And it just, what it ended up doing was propelling me forth, knowing that
Right.
gain confidence that my mentality became, whatever happens to me in life, I can handle it with Christ.
Yeah.
So that shift in that mentality, that took away a lot of fear in my life. And it's, I don't know, it's this journey that we're on is wild to me, but I can feel my biology changing. I'm really excited about that, because Joe Dispenza talks about, you're learning to not be yourself, is what the process of transformation is. And it's dropping all those ways of that we have come to do life, or be willing to drop it. And but it's really exhilarating.
Yeah.
But and some days, that flow, I'm able to, it seems like if I get too many things that happen to me in one day, though, I can't maintain, it rocks me. But then, but the thing is, the growth is still there, because I'm aware of how I'm feeling and how this is affecting me. And I'm, that awareness,
Yeah.
to me, that's the point of breakthrough. And so I feel like I just keep walking into my life,
Awesome.
into fullness of life. Just keep walking into it, walking into it. And every morning I wake up, I think, man, I should be, like, I don't know how to explain it, except I feel like I'm walking into who I really am.
Well, I think Debbie, that you said a couple of statements really, really poignant. Um, you talk about a state of being, and I think that you're describing that. That
Mhm.
a lot of it is through process, a lot of it is what you're processing. But
Right.
I think that's all of us are. You
Mhm.
said it for all of us that we become a new state of being.
Yes,
And
yes.
and I just want to reinforce that
Mhm.
surrendering or letting go is not quitting. There's a
No.
difference.
Mhm.
Uh, and
Yeah.
and if you feel like you have to, well, sometimes you just have to quit, stop something that
Mhm.
in that terminology. But surrendering from a point where you don't need to, sort of to stop, but you need to change the focus of it. And when you do that,
Mhm.
you surrender into the
Mhm.
place where God will actually um, will lead and guide and is is always there. I think that there's a maturing that we're experiencing. We're
Mhm.
experiencing the fact that we're
Mhm.
learning certain things, and they don't stay as theory, and we don't continually go back to the old patterns of our life.
Mhm.
Those, and we have Ed and I had a very traumatic weekend. We had a person who was like a son to us for many, many years, took his own life.
Oh no.
And that is something very, very, we were very, very close. And
Mm.
um, uh,
Mm. It's terrible.
it's hard, but the new state of being that we live in changes grief, even changes so much. Doesn't mean that you don't go through the shock and awe, first of all,
Mhm.
and then as you settle down, the anger comes up. Why didn't you come to us? All those things, but they come differently in a state of knowing, in a state of a state, and it's really a state of grace, so that you don't construct grief around it in undue measure. You feel it's good, I think, very good to feel the pain, to feel the process
Mhm.
um, of these kind of anything of trauma or loss, because it's the very thing that creates a new state of being where you do let
Mhm.
go of old. And it comes in the testing. I hate the tests, by the way. I'm
Yeah.
not fond of them. And it isn't a pass or a failure. It just is. It's just part of that. Um, Something sinks into your own soul, your own spirit.
Mhm.
And yeah. Well, tonight has been, I just so grateful for all of you who shared, and how just sensing the whole oneness of the journey. How great is that? And I did look up the book, and it's not 25 hours, it's only 24 hours and 16 minutes. So I felt that that was doable, you know? Anyway, thank you. We're gonna stay on after tonight for those who would like to. We're gonna pray with Hadassah. She's in the middle of the forest fires in California right now, and whoever can join in, great. Totally understand. It is a school night, and some people get up really early to exercise. I they're my heroes on here. Uh, but thank you for coming on. Brand new year. Uh, and you know what? It's not even the same journey. We're being expanded, and I just know the Lord's going to take us into some very, very interesting times in the next in this season, actually. I have a folder already. I'm looking forward to it. So And so till next week, may the Lord bless you and keep you, may make his face to shine on you, be gracious unto you, and lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his perfect shalom. Nothing missing, nothing broken.